But why don't we start?
Sorry, what was that? Are we ready then, Jocelyn?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Well, welcome everyone. I can't see everyone who's there, but thanks for joining in. You should see, hopefully on the screen, we've got an agenda for today, and you'll see that we've got a guest speaker, Joe Archer from UK Export Finance. So once Joe's finished, please do stay for the rest of the agenda and join in, and we'll take it from there. So if everyone's okay, we'll pass it over to Joe. Over to you.
Good morning, everybody, and I'm delighted to have this opportunity to speak to you really and tell you a little bit more about UK Export Finance, and hopefully dispel some of the myths around, you know, the UK government, UK Export Finance historically and traditionally helping some of the bigger companies in the UK. So I act as a UK Export Finance Manager, which means that I look after 3 counties, which happen to be Cambridgeshire, Bedfordshire and Northamptonshire. But I have colleagues all around the UK, which will be a slide at the end, which will just detail who those people are, so that if you do have somebody that you would like to take further and speak to, then you will know who your representative is. So what I wanted to do, because it's a relatively small group, is just say to you, I'm really happy if you wanted to engage during the presentation and ask any questions, because the most important thing for me and UK Export Finance is that you understand what we do and make the most out of the services that we can provide if you can. So I'm very, very happy if you've got any questions going through, just to ask them, that's fine. So Jocelyn, can I have the slide with starts in 2019, please?
There, can you see that, Joe? In 2019, 2020?
No, but can everybody else?
Yep.
Okay. Well, I've got slides here, so it's fine. I can't see it for some reason, but I'll just start reading from the slides I've got here. So just in a really brief way, this is to show the level of support that UK Export Finance has given to exporters. And when I say support, the UK Export Finance Department doesn't actually give cash to companies. And if you've got any experience of what we do, we offer guarantees behind bank facilities in the main. So whether that's a facility to you as an exporter or to a buyer of your goods. So it's always the guarantor of those facilities. But it's really just to show you that a large percentage of what we have done, certainly in the last 5 years, has been around helping and supporting companies in the SME space. So it's just a slide to show that we're not just helping all the big boys, we are trying to engage with smaller companies as well. And even more so really through the pandemic, things that we've introduced, new schemes that we've introduced to help companies and help banks access our products more easily. So can you move on to our products, please, Jocelyn? Because I can't see which slide we're on the screen, but
You're all set, Joe.
Yeah, so just a very brief, there are lots of products here. It's to show you the breadth of what UK Export Finance can do. So I'm going to concentrate probably on 3 or 4 of the main ones where it's more short term and more aimed at the SME market, and that's on the export guarantee side. But we also do support for your buyers. So if you have typically quite large contract opportunities, so historically it's been sort of 50 million plus, but we're now looking at, because we can see that there is more appetite from people to approach us for facilities where they're asking for sort of 1 million plus. So if you have a buyer that's in a territory where cost of finance is quite expensive, then this can be quite attractive to look at doing a buyer facility, as long as it's a pretty good buyer, where the bank guarantees a facility to your buyer using a UK Export Finance guarantee. So the cost of that can be attractive to countries where it's expensive. But that's on the buyer side. So there's lots of things that we do there. And direct lending is probably something you hear about a lot when the Chancellor announces how much money he's going to invest in UK export finance. And that's typically helping companies where they are larger sort of project-led project-led businesses. So we don't tend to see too much of it in the SME world, but it's something that we're definitely looking at, seeing if we can change it in a way. But we have to be very mindful, obviously, that it's taxpayer money, and we have to make sure that we produce the right kind of product for that. And then the exporter guarantees is where you probably see the SME market more, which is on working capital schemes and bonding schemes, where your buyer may be giving you a deposit, but he's quite keen that you fulfill your contract. Therefore, he would ask your bank to guarantee that you will do that. And sometimes, and more often than not, the bank are happy to do it as long as they can hold a cash reserve. And that kind of takes away that money that you might need for your cash flow. So having a guarantee from UK Export Finance gives the bank the comfort to release that cash to you for much needed working capital. So if we, and then the one that's this, so those products, the short-term products, work alongside banks. So we typically work with 5 or 6 banks at the moment, where they provide the working capital facility or the trade facility, and we sit behind it as a guarantor in theory. So we don't actually produce the cash, we sit as a guarantor. And then the one thing that we do as a standalone is our insurance products. So if you don't necessarily have a working capital need, and it's more that you're dealing perhaps with a territory that you're not very comfortable with and you've not gone to before, then UK Export Finance can look at helping you with your credit insurance. So, insuring that debt up to 95% for the risk against non-payment. So that's non-payment due to political risk, or just simply that you've not been paid. So it's always a good thing if it's not cash flow that's not stopping you from doing the export, then you can look at the credit insurance side. If we move on to the working capital side, please, Jocelyn, which just really gives you just a bit more detail around that. So what I might do on this one is just, we don't have a case study on the screen, but just to talk you through how this might work. So if you're a company that's making kit and you have to buy in from somewhere like China, which is quite obviously a popular import destination, and you haven't negotiated particularly good terms, and you have to pay the Chinese supplier sort of within 30 days of taking the goods, but you know that it's going, the lead time on perhaps what you're producing in the UK to then export is going to be 90 days. And then at the end of it, you've still got to wait 60 to 90 days. So it's a very long lead time in terms of you paying your supplier and actually getting paid for the goods at the end of it. Then a working capital scheme can work, where the bank provides you a facility that supports you from making the payment to the supplier to actually being paid at the end of it. So your company is not, cash strapped throughout that whole period. It has a proper trade facility designed and set up for it to accommodate that. And what the government does is it sits behind the bank's facility as a guarantor up to 80% of that. So the bank still takes a 20% risk, but it means that it gives them the capacity to provide you with that facility. So that's where a working capital scheme works well. And we've increased this to a term of 5 years and 5 million as a facility where the bank can apply for this through our portal, which is in essence takes away all the nasty sort of long, historically it takes the government a long time to agree to a credit proposal, but it's the portal, if you're an eligible customer, means that you can receive an answer very, very quickly, which means that if you have an exporting business that's quite reactive and not proactive, that you can hopefully access our support in that way. And then moving on to the bond support. So the bond support scheme is, I covered that a bit earlier, is that we supply a guarantee against a bank guarantee, where they've supplied it for things like an advance payment bond. So if you are used to working within a contract with an overseas buyer where you want to take a deposit because what you're doing is actually quite niche and quite tailored to, and specified to what they need, then you might be looking at taking a 20% deposit, for example. So the buyer's happy to do that, but they might require a bank guarantee. And if the bank's not comfortable that you're going to fulfill your contract, it might keep the 20% in a reserve account. But by having a guarantee behind it from UK Export Finance, they would be able to release that cash to you, so you can use that for working capital. I mean, we've got lots of case study examples of this on our website, but one that's a Cambridge company, which is the case study SG Controls, which I don't know if you could move on to that, Jocelyn. But SG Controls is a company that makes telecommunications towers. So it has a UK supplier that it needs to pay fairly quickly, and it deals with lots of Chinese and Indian companies, and they're often looking to use advanced payment guarantees, and then at the end of it they would have retention bonds. During it they would have performance bonds. So all of these bonds are sort of can be tied up in working capital, but with the support of UK Export Finance guarantees, we can eliminate that and give you the vital cash that you need to use for your export contracts. So these are just companies. SG Controls is a company that comes back to us quite frequently. Banks with Barclays, and it just means that it enables them to explore other export contracts as well by having the government guarantees in place for the majority of them. And if you could move to the general exporting facility slide, Jocelyn, hopefully that's the next one and I've not mixed up my paperwork here. Great. So this is as exciting as it gets, I think, working for UK Export Finance, but we've not had a new product range for 5 or 6 years now, and the general exporting facility has been introduced this year, literally in January, where it is helpful for general contracts. So the schemes that we've talked about are very contract specific at the moment, so you wouldn't necessarily be able to access them if you had lots and lots of buyers, or you had an invoice finance facility for your exporting business. There's lots of things where you could have multiple buyers, multiple requirements, and the new general exporting facility helps support that. And it just means that it can help banks look at more of a revolving credit line where they've got government support behind it, which can help you with all of your export trade rather than the contract specific things that we've looked at before. And again, it works in the same way. It's a guarantee. It's much, much, much more flexible in terms of the criteria, what makes you eligible to use it. So if the bank had a revolving credit line that included your domestic trade as well, we're not restricted by that like we have been before. So typically in the past, we've only been able to help export business. But obviously now, as long as there is an element of export in your business, then we can support your domestic, we can offer a guarantee behind domestic facilities as well. So there's lots of things that we're changing to try and help SMEs access us more. And the general exporting facilities is definitely something that will help with that. So that's, again, at the moment, we typically deal with 5 banks, but we are looking to engaging with other finance providers outside banks that perhaps would be able to use us in the same way the banks do, but give more breadth in terms of SMEs accessing finance if it's not through their banks because they don't meet their bank's criteria. And then if we could just move on to the export insurance policy slide, Jocelyn, please. And just to give a bit more detail around this, so this obviously is the credit insurance that we use to support you if it's just the risk of non-payment that concerns you about it. And as a government department, we're not allowed to compete with the private sector. So we do need to see that the private sector haven't been able to provide cover. So what typically happens is the private sector likes to have whole book because it obviously likes to cover its risk, but we like single buyer. So if it's just one, you want to cherry pick one out of it all that's, you know, say it's Nigeria or somewhere that's a little bit outside where you might normally go. A private sector insurance provider may find that uncomfortable to provide single cover on that basis. So UK Export Finance can assist you with that by providing a standalone credit insurance product through us. We don't use a broker. It is a government insurance policy. The interesting one about this, so through the pandemic, we've only been able to help in territories that are quite difficult because we've not been able to do any cover in the EU or OECD rich countries like Australia, New Zealand, America, Canada, but we have now been allowed, OECD regulations have meant that we have been allowed to extend that offering at the moment to the EU and OECD rich countries. So we are not restricted. The only restrictions will lie in sanctioned countries, but there is a huge amount that we can do in this space at the moment. So credit insurance is certainly one that's worth providing. And then there's just a quick case study on Bioguard on the next slide, which is it's a company that provides hand sanitizers and hygiene products to the medical world, and its big market is in the Middle East. And it was dealing with upfront payments to start with, and then they were asked, could we please have terms after about a year's trading? And they decided it was a bit risky. They felt like they were comfortable enough given the trading history, but they wanted to make sure that in the event that they wouldn't get paid, that it wouldn't have an impact on the business, because it was a growing part of their business. And so we assisted them with some export credit insurance to help them eliminate that. And I'm very happy to say that a year of using us, they've not suffered any issues. And in actual fact, they've probably like trebled their growth given the pandemic and the product that they have. So this is a way that we've been able to help them. And it's just to add on that there are no minimums or maximums on our credit insurance policy. So if it's a £5,000 requirement or it's a £25 million requirement, there's no minimums or maximums on that product. And then if you could just move, Jocelyn, onto the buyer finance products, and this is more when you have an opportunity where the buyer wants to seek better payment terms, or you yourself don't want to take the risk on your balance sheet, so you want to be able to pass the payments on to your buyer, and that's where the government can work with banks, or we certainly have some independent finance houses that we work with as well, where we can offer guarantees against buyer credits. So these can be, the smaller ones are typically 2 or 3 years in term. The only difference is it just is a bit more attractive if it's the country that wants to borrow it. They don't get particularly competitive rates, but that's the buyer side of things as well. But I mean, that's just really a very quick, well, hopefully it was quick, probably not, but just to give you an overview of what we can do. But obviously there is so much we can do that I don't just want to, it would be nice to be able to speak to as many people as I can to find out if there's anything that they particularly wanted to talk about. So Jocelyn, if you could leave up the Export Finance Manager Network slide so people can see that. And I will also just add that the role of an export finance manager is to make sure that no export fails a lack of finance, particularly if obviously it has to be a viable export. But we are finding that without having as much bank support for SMEs as we would like to see, we are signposting companies outside banks to other finance providers who are successfully finding them finance to perform their international trade. So if we're not able to get the banks on board with assisting SMEs, then we do have other routes where we can access finance for you. So it's part of our role. Whilst we do, our products are with the banks, we are here to try and signpost people to the right finance to help you with your exporting business. So there's coverage all over the UK, as you'll see from that slide. So it's just a question of getting in contact with people and finding out more about the eligibility of the business and what we might be able to do to help you. So I will leave it at that. And if there's any questions, I'm very, very happy to take them.
I guess Joe, such a small group. Oh, sorry, Steve. Just because we're a small group, it's probably easiest if you have a question is just to take yourself off mute, put your video back on, and just ask Joe directly rather than using the chat. Be a bit faster. Sorry, Steve. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, yeah, far away. Anyone who's got a question. I just wanted to say, Joe, that I'm quite encouraged because I had tended to think that export finance was really for had been geared at larger organizations and larger contracts or whatever, and it's encouraging to hear that the SMEs are now being targeted and that smaller amounts of money, contract size or whatever are sort of in your sights. So that's encouraging. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you just see that there are other schemes that are geared up to help people, like the latest export development guarantee that was there to help Ford, but there are schemes that are tailored to help the bigger employers of the UK, but then obviously these shorter term product ranges here to help SMEs, purely and simply to help SMEs.
Sorry, Joe. Yeah, I have a question. My name's John. With regard to the insurance is definitely something that could be appealing because we're finding we're getting more interest from countries such as Tunisia, Morocco, that kind of thing. So a little bit outside of the norm, and we have suffered in the past where it's taken quite a while to get cash back, although we've always been successful, but that might be something to look at. Can you provide us numbers? I think actually we're under Northamptonshire, so probably fall with yourself. So
Yeah.
certainly, can we get your contact details for afterwards?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you.
Definitely. I mean, in terms of the getting paid part of it, is it? Yeah, that's sorry. You just put yourself on mute again, so that's fine. Just make contact with me. That's fine.
Thank you.
I won't explain anymore. We'll just take it offline. That's fine.
Okay.
Nobody else? There must be some questions. I've got one. One of my concerns with things like export finance and indeed insurance has been the relative cost. So bearing in mind that you're looking a bit more at SMEs, I'm presuming that the relative cost is maybe lower than I'm expecting. I've no idea what kind of cost is involved. Are you able to give any kind of indication, you know, as percentage wise or something like that?
Yeah, it depends on the transaction. So of course, it's always going to be a lot cheaper to get your trade finance through your bank, without a shadow of a doubt. So in terms of costing, the bank will just charge you its standard. If it was to use UK export finance, it would just charge, I think it's around 2%. It's been around 2% for some time for a product, but we don't charge. So how it works, we don't charge you as the exporter, and how it works is that we take a share of what the bank charges you. So if we were to give an 80% guarantee on a facility, we would take an 80% share in what the bank charges you, but it does not mean that the bank charges you any more than they would normally charge you. So in terms of your very typical mainstream banking finance option, it's around that. It's really interesting. We had a presentation from a guy that deals with sanctioned countries yesterday. So typically places like Iran and Sudan, really, I mean, nobody really thinks they should trade there, and perhaps with the sanctions we shouldn't be, but there are ways that you can do it. And he was telling me that on they did a deal recently with this. So this is a finance provider outside the bank, so you would expect that to be more expensive. But they were talking about dealing with a contract in Iran where they managed to finance a transaction for 6.5%. So obviously, the more difficult territories you go to, the higher, you know, your cost is going to be. But if you were just to do a banking facility here in a very nice country, then, you know, you're not looking at much more than 2% as an overall charge. But if you were to go outside that traditional lending, you probably are looking at something between 6 and 10%. On the credit insurance side, if you have a whole book cover, which is something we don't do, that's what the private sector does, then it's probably, on a decent turnover business, is anything sort of between 0.8 and 1.2% probably. But if you were to do a single, I think the latest one that we've done on Egypt, for example, it was 2.25%. Would have been the cost of that credit insurance policy. So that's based on the amount that the policy is in place for. So it's a difficult one to say, because obviously it depends on the territory. It depends on the term of the loan, things like that. But the costing is probably not as scary. I was really surprised about Iran being 6.5%, I have to say. So, you know, it's not as scary, I don't think, as people think it might be.
Right.
Well, that could be really scary. I don't think it's scary, but
Thanks. Okay. Anybody else?
help?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Anybody else got any questions?
No, I don't think so.
Have I explained it as simply as possible? Because I know that I'm from a banking background, and when I wasn't from an international trade background, but I came into this role, and it took me ages to work out what it was that we did. And I think that we can tend to bamboozle people with it. And I hope I've explained it as simply as I possibly can. But if you do,
any examples you have, that would be good.
any examples?
Yeah.
So
how it work, how talk us through how it worked or something. So
okay, well, hopefully I did that with the import to export working capital bit, but how it would work on the bonds. So again, I think just explaining the advance payments and the performance bonds being held up maybe in reserve accounts with a guarantee behind a facility, it means the bank wouldn't need to keep that cash. So it just means that it gives you more working capital to play with, rather than it being tied up as security, because the bank doesn't have the risk appetite to do it without it. So it's just that it gives the bank more scope to give you more cash facilities if it has a government guarantee behind it.
Okay. Has anybody got any other questions? I just wanted to ask, are we able to access these slides afterwards?
Yeah.
Jocelyn?
Yes, I'll send them around to the whole of the export group.
Great, thanks.
Joe, your email address is joe.archer@ukexportfinance.gov.uk. For the
Yeah, that's right.
finance managers, is their email address the same? Essentially first name dot last name?
Yeah.
I'm making
Yeah.
that assumption.
Yeah, they haven't got their email addresses in there, have they? But if anybody wants to get their email address, I can provide that. That's why I can make an introduction. I don't have a problem with that at all.
Okay, wonderful. I'll distribute Joe's email address in addition to the slide.
Great, thanks.
Brilliant.
Okay.
Well, thank you ever so much, and enjoy the rest of your meeting.
Thank you, Joe.
Yep.
No worries.
Thanks very much indeed.
well
Okay.
done. Really
Thank you,
great.
Joe.
Okay.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Very helpful.
Well, that was very meaty, and I think that's the thing. That's why I need to look at those slides sort of after the event and just work my way through it and look at what's relevant to us. But I thought that was really helpful actually, and I do admit that I sort of came to it a little bit with a skeptical attitude perhaps, but I was quite encouraged that that they were, that they're now looking at, if you like, smaller businesses, especially as smaller businesses seem to make up most of our exports, generally speaking. So anyway, moving on to the rest of the agenda, we've got some overseas exhibition updates. Gulf Host, Jocelyn, do you want to say a few words here?
Sure. So Gulf Host, as far as we know, is actually happening in Dubai starting on Sunday. We've not heard anything to the contrary. However, we're not having a UK pavilion due to the travel restrictions basically making us impossible for us to get there. The UK pavilion has been canceled, and they're aware of that. So unfortunately, no UK presence that I know of at Gulf Host this time around. So we will hope that when it comes around next year, we will be able to bring another group out, but we'll see what happens. They have not yet announced when the next show will be. I'm guessing they'll do that next week.
Yeah.
I sent your email yesterday, Jocelyn, and yeah, it's 1,700 quid back is not an awful lot, is it?
No, so basically what we did, Gary's referring to, is that because we didn't have a UK pavilion, we didn't actually have to build the stand. So we didn't have to pay our stand builders, giving that money back to the companies that were on the UK pavilion, because we didn't have to pay it, so we gave it back.
Yeah, so that's basically what's the name's company, isn't it? So
Audrey, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think we'll have to wait and see, Gary, whether the lovely people over in Dubai decide to feel magnanimous and refund us anything, but
I very much doubt it. I mean, no, like they're very bolshy and just ride a roughshod over everybody. So yeah. It is quite shocking considering the amount of restrictions placed on it. I had a very good call with our guys over in the Middle East last week, and the number of cases there are rising exponentially at the moment. So I was really surprised it was going ahead. So
our guy said a few weeks ago he'd be surprised. He said he wasn't comfortable going, and he thought we wouldn't get many visitors. And I looked at the exhibitors, and this is about a week or so ago. Well, when when we all decided to finally pull out, and looking at the international groups, I mean, the number of companies from Germany, Italy, France is negligible. So I don't think the Gulf Host side is going to be a very good show anyway. So.
Well, I can't see the food side being that good either if there's that many restrictions. So. Yeah. Anyway.
I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but already thinking of next year. Do you know if it's being joined with Gulf Food next year as well?
We don't know. They've not told us anything, unfortunately.
No, just to came into my head.
I think that next week we'll know.
Right. Okay.
They've not actually responded at all to you, have they, Jocelyn? No. Apart from apparently being shocked on the telephone call,
He wasn't surprised when I rang him.
Okay, so NRA, what's happening with that one then, Jocelyn?
So as far as we know, it is happening. They've not yet canceled it. However, the common gossip, so to speak, is that it will be canceled because it is based in a state that has very strict COVID regulations. So the COVID regulations in the states vary by state. The state government sets them. And because of where NRA shows do be, they have very strict regulations there at the moment. So they do anticipate that it will be, but it has not yet been officially canceled.
Okay. And then NAFEM's been postponed till August.
Yep. And so yesterday I had a Zoom call with the head of NAFEM to speak with her about this. And the show is going forward. So they have every hope that it will be a good show and that throughout the United States, people will be able to travel freely. I think the issue remains to be seen is regarding international travel. So whether or not the UK folks will be allowed into the United States in August, we don't know. So I know because I'm American, and they'll let them in. But unfortunately, for the UK citizens, it's not. We don't know yet if the US will allow us in. However, the show is planning to go ahead. I've been charged to contact our members and the UK companies in general to see who's interested in exhibiting. They will set aside space for UK companies to be a little mini UK pavilion. We normally have 3, 4, 5, 6 companies, just a handful of companies go over. So if you have an interest in exhibiting, we certainly have a chat with me, ring me or email me to let me know. I need to let them know within a few weeks so that they can make sure to set aside some space for us. The prices will be the same. They're not changing their prices, so they will be at 2019 prices. And when you ring me, we can talk about what that is and what is involved. There is an application process that you have to go through. It's a non-member application because essentially we're not NAFEM members, so they have to go through a special application process. It is manufacturers of products.
We are a member, and I'm just wondered how that works then. So
yeah, so I've been speaking with Anne-Marie, Gary, about it.
She kind of mentioned it very briefly, phone call about 6 o'clock last night. So, but she didn't fill me in the full details. She
was mentioning whether or not she seemed to think that you would be on your distributor stand in the US like you have.
Well, yeah, we were sort of trying to pull away from them, you see, a little bit. That's why we're unsure. But if there's a good presence from a UK pavilion, then we would be interested. Yeah. So, because we have done it before, it's been very beneficial for us. So that's why we're keen to go, really.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. We can talk after this, Gary, about pricing. Yeah. Now.
Jocelyn, just out of interest, could the FEA become an FM member?
Well, we have a special deal with them related to the fees involved. So yeah, it's essentially you do get in as a non-member.
Okay. Okay. And then we have host Milan, and as far as we know, that's still going ahead.
As far as we know, I've not heard to the contrary.
Right. Okay.
We're looking into that one as well. So individually, I assume most of the others are at the moment, but
do you do it, Gary, anyway?
Say again.
Do you do it, Gary, anyway?
We haven't as this company as Nuttall's. Obviously, I've done it before, but we were going to do it regardless. I think we've made that decision whether that's as a standalone company or whether that's part of a pavilion, that we would look at it. Obviously, whether it goes ahead is a different matter, but yeah, it's something we're keen on. We had a very good exhibition over in Germany this time last year. So we are keen to push those as well. So, but yeah,
it's always been a great show as host. I am concerned for this year because traditionally it gets a massive pull from international, but yeah, I just don't know who's going to actually be going to it this year is the problem.
Yeah. I know they had planned some online meetings as well, I believe. I don't know how that's kind of working out. Have you actually booked, John, or not yet?
Yeah, we always rebook straight after the last one. So we have a rep out in Italy, and they have a specific area themselves that we sort of form part of that area. But I think they've had 2 or 3 pull out. I did hear yesterday, but not confirmed. I don't think Revol are going to do it, but I don't know how. That was just through a French rep who told me that yesterday. I had heard that they were going to do it, but that was news that I heard yesterday that they didn't think they would be there. But everybody else within that territory is still going to be there. So we're scheduled to go, but I'm wondering how it's going to look.
Yeah. I mean, it has been the best show in Europe for a number of years, hasn't it?
Yeah.
So.
Actually, to be honest with you, I visited the last time it was on, and then I went to that Euro shop, which is probably more for me than from main food service. And I think the that one was much better show. The attendance and just the general quality of people that were there was far better, I thought.
What, at Euroshop?
At Euroshop or at Host?
Say again, sorry.
Were you saying Euroshop was better or Host was better?
I think so. Euroshop was certainly better. I only visited Host. I mean, Robert did Host. So you did Host, didn't you, Robert, last year?
I think what Host, everyone knows, it's so vast, isn't it? Is that Euroshop, Gary? Is that not the one that's every 3 years?
2
years, isn't it? Yeah.
It's the same as Milan. Okay.
Sorry, Euroshop's every 3. Yeah.
So maybe that's the difference then. Pent up demand, if you can call it that.
Yeah.
I think Host is still probably #1 internationally now, isn't it? And I think maybe a feeling that some of these smaller shows, which could actually include Gulf Host for us, might fall by the wayside, and people just concentrate on one big international show every year or every couple of years. Because I think even Singapore's now, because they've messed about with the venue, that's fallen by the wayside a wee bit as well.
I was going to say, it feels like there are sort of quite a few people who would normally attend down in Southeast Asia and even Australia, where they almost sort of disregard the likes of FSA, their second biggest trade show, just to save up for Milan Host. So I wouldn't be surprised if it might actually do surprisingly quite well, just by sort of consolidating the lack of attendance from the other big players further afield.
Well, the restaurant and bar show that was over in Hong Kong, there was hardly a soul there. Gives you an idea as well. So that's and that's normally very well attended.
It's just a question with Host whether October's still a wee bit early. Nobody knows.
One of the interesting ones, we've signed up for that virtual Internorga.
All right.
So with our partner over in Germany and Austria. So
is that November?
No, it's in March.
March.
Yeah, I think it's like the 15th of March or something like that.
You mean
it's
next
all
month?
online kind of thing. Yeah, next month, yeah.
All right, okay.
So we should be quite interested to see how that generates something, whether that's a way forward for, these smaller shows and stuff. So,
right.
But I'll certainly report back on it anyway. But we've teamed up with our Austrian and German guys to. Our German guy knows the organisers, so we're putting a bit of a package together for that side of it. But it includes like virtual show, loads of mailing out and things like that as well. So, it may be the way to go for these smaller ones.
Yeah, because Internorga last year was kind of the first trade show that really got hit come the start of the pandemic, I think.
Yeah.
Seemingly more than HRC did over here. But Gary, would this be the first one you're really doing virtually properly?
Yeah. Yeah, the first major show that we would normally do. We were signed up to do it like last year, but obviously that never happened. So this is the first proper one we're going all in as a virtual experience. We were going to look at running the virtual one from our factory, but this is our sort of toe in the water to see how they go with the support of our local guys. So. We will see.
I know you're a mate, Gary, but if the next scheduled meeting, could you give us a bit of if it's after whenever Internorga is, I don't know. Gary,
yeah, it's in a month's time, so I think it's 15th or something like that. 15th to 18th.
Give us a bit of a spiel about it.
Yeah, certainly. I'll try and get something together and do a bit of a presentation, show you what happened and stuff like that. But yeah, as far as we're concerned, we're going ahead with that one at the moment, so could be the way to go.
Do they take payment in the form of AstraZeneca doses?
Sorry, say again.
Do they take payment in the form of AstraZeneca doses?
Hey, I tell you what, it's not cheap. It starts off about $5,000.
Really, for the virtual?
Yeah, up to they're doing like bronze, silver, and gold packages, and I think the bronze one starts off at $5,000. The silver is 5,000 euros. The silver one was 21,000 and the gold was like 49,000 euros.
Wow.
It was crazy pricing. You know, that's the other thing that scared me off a little bit. But so
they must have presented you with some pretty compelling sort of almost sales lead guarantee type.
Well, as I said, our guy Marcus, who's in Germany, the guy who's actually running the virtual side of it, the good friends. So we've got a little bit of a package deal from them, but you know, I don't know the full story yet. So we'll have to see how it goes. So we earmarked the money anyway, and I think you know just to go and attend the show and send some kit over was going to be about £5,000 anyway. So nothing ventured in this case.
Yeah.
So have they got a sort of still maximum stream of people they're allowed to get through physically as well?
Yeah. And you have to register ahead of time. You can't just turn onto a webinar or things like that. But hopefully they'll pull the full package together. If I get something together beforehand, or I got given something beforehand, I'll just email it to Jocelyn and she can send it out just so you get an idea of what they're doing.
No, thanks.
Yeah.
We sorted the guest speaker for our next meeting then, Gary. That's you.
I'm not, but we have been offered that, but that was part of the 20-odd grand package. So I'm quite glad I'm not doing that, to be honest with you.
We'll just present it at our next meeting. So it is the 15th of March in Tenorca. It's a 3-day event.
Yeah.
We'll make sure that the next meeting is after that, so you can give us a report.
Yeah. So I think that the thing about it is, although it's a 3-day event for the very virtual side of it, it's extended because of all the mail shots and all the additional webinars and things. So it's going to be over a longer period of time. So yeah. Anyway, I will report back.
Great, thanks, Gary. That's good. Justin, are there any other exhibitions to mention at this stage? Anybody got any others that they can think of?
I don't have anything to report, but does the group have anything?
No.
That's
Okay.
all I've looked at.
Yeah, Gary, just to check, Euroshop then is that for shop fitting, or is it for kind of what exactly is Euroshop?
Has a bit of everything, really. I mean, we had certainly some of the biggest players about in the convenience stores, supermarkets, that kind of thing. But I think the good thing for us, it was from everywhere. You know, we were able to meet, you know, the likes of Lulu and things like that in the Middle East. A lot of the UK supermarkets, you know, even like the big guys in Asda and things like that from Leeds and stuff turned up. So it was, there was a lot of interesting people that are not in this sort of hotel arena, as it were, very much sort of the convenience store come larger supermarkets. So that's side of it. But don't get me wrong, there was a whole hall of shop fitting. And although we do have a shop fitting division, we didn't go there. We went as a food service team. The shop fitting guys turned up. I went for a walk around, and you know, some of the stands are dwarfed what I've seen at a Gulf food, at a Host. So just because of the nature of the beast, really. But that had some very good presence over there. But, yeah.
And where does it take place?
Dusseldorf.
Oh, okay.
It would have been this time. It started a year ago today. So,
What, you mean that was the first show?
No, we were actually there a year ago today.
Oh, okay.
It started on the 16th of February last year. So.
Right, and is it an annual?
3 years, I think it is.
3 years, you said, didn't you? Yeah. Right. Okay. Thanks.
They were talking about doing it every 2 years on the alternative year to Host, but because it was so well attended, even though if you remember last year, it was when people were starting to go into lockdown. So.
Okay, great. Okay, well, thanks for that, Gary. It's great.
Yeah.
Jocelyn, so TAP grant updates. You've mentioned here that monies are not awarded for exhibitions attended in countries where the Foreign Commonwealth Office have advised against non-essential travel.
Mhm.
And obviously that's what was virtually the nail in the coffin for Gulf Host as
Correct.
far as we're concerned.
Yes.
But I got the impression that well, probably TAP grants are up in the air anyway, aren't they?
We've not yet been told by DOT regarding TAP grants for the next fiscal year. We've not been invited to petition for TAP grants. Not been told anything as of yet. So yeah, don't know. As soon as anything, we'll let you know.
Yeah.
We've not heard anything. We typically would have them for Host Milan. 10, about 10 usually. But
right. But nothing's been mentioned for Milan either. No.
No. Unfortunately, nothing's been opened up from DIT for the next fiscal year yet.
Right. Okay.
Is there any next sort of stage marker, sort of bench marker that they're sort of waiting for? Is it?
They don't tell us. Some years we don't find out until we're actually in the fiscal year what grants we have for that fiscal year. So unfortunately with DIT, it's not predictable. We just are waiting on them to give us the news.
Okay, thanks.
Right. Okay. But that's why it's quite interesting that the that there's something from Export Finance, but I suppose that's they're supporting rather than handing out money, if you like. So
Perhaps, yeah.
Be handy to know if we could hand it out for virtual ones as well. Could do with a bit of help on that.
So essentially the answer is yes. So for Gulf Hosts, if Gulf Host had decided to not have an in-person show and do it all virtually, and our exhibitors had decided to participate virtually, then yes, the answer is yes, that we could have tried.
Interesting.
But the issue is for the next fiscal year, we don't know what's happening. We've not been told, but hopefully, yes, the answer will be yes, that it will apply for virtual.
Send us anything you have on that, Jocelyn.
Pardon?
Just send us any updates you have on that.
Yeah, as soon as I hear, I'll let you know. Yeah.
Thanks.
If it's not asking a fairly boring, mundane question, if people already know, but I've actually not done one of the virtual shows yet. We've kind of taken the point of view that if we can't be present, then focus on the sort of projects that you progress anyway on sort of phone calls, emails, rather than sort of as maybe a lot of people might see it as a halfway house. But do typically all suppliers just have a video on a showroom, a demo showroom you've set up in your own place, and attendees rock up and have they kind of choose which suppliers they're interested in, or they have a screen of about 100 different mini videos, or how does it? I wonder if someone could give a sort of general idea of how they expect it to work, for example, with Internorga.
Just give me 1 second. I'll find the. There you go.
I did.
You want to share your screen, Gary?
I'm just trying to find something that was sent to me with the packages, to be honest with you. So if you just bear with me a second.
I'll give you permission to share your screen. So if you want to share it with us, you can.
Just bear with me a sec.
And I'm only thinking because if we're probably at the most projectable stage of the pandemic so far, and if we're still sort of questioning whether such a major event like Host Milan sort of is a go or not, then it would be worth giving some serious consideration at the moment to consider for the first time a virtual show, given that that's still 8 months away.
I don't know how your German are, those guys, so
I speak a bit.
Yeah, okay. Jocelyn, have you given me control?
Yeah, so at the bottom of your screen, there's a green button.
Yeah, I see it.
Click on that, and then a pop-up will come up.
Can you see that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, my German.
Hang on. Hang 1 second. So they're the packages that were, so you could invite 50 VIP guests to it all. The marks inside of it was obviously mail shots and things like that. You could submit videos to it all. They were going to do like a brochure, a virtual brochure that went round as well. So it kind of, and it was only when you got to the likes of the gold package that you could actually include like 3D showrooms. So you could actually develop your own showroom, as it were, and lay out your equipment and show people exactly how they fitted in and things. So as I said, if you look at the prices, it's quite scandalous, really, you know. So yeah.
Presumably you're doing the bronze then, Gary.
Well, what we've done, because as I said before, we know one of the guys that's working for this side of it. We're trying to do a bit of a deal for a bit of a combination of things, really, and get a package deal together. So anyway, I'll send that round if anybody wants to see it. So there you go.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'll let you know exactly what we end up doing, to be honest with you. We've got another call tomorrow, which we're hoping to get a bit of an update on. So, but yeah, go from there.
Great. Okay. Thanks.
Thanks.
Okay. So, are there any other things that people want to bring up? Export issues. I remember, I think, was it last time we had the guy from XDS? Is that all right?
Yes.
Yeah. So has anybody either tried using XDS or tried exporting somewhere difficult since we last met and succeeded or otherwise that they want to share?
Tried to ship into Europe. That's interesting.
So does that mean it didn't work, or?
Oh, it's working now, but it's yeah, no, I didn't get in touch with the guy afterwards. And I must admit, I think my brain is throwing so much information, I can't even remember what he spoke about, which is really bad.
I think it included Saudi and difficult places, basically.
Yes, yeah. But,
I think there's enough problems getting things locally. I mean, I know just to go over to Germany at the moment, it's taking us 2 weeks to get things, you know, into Germany. So that's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So,
is anybody else shipping DDP?
We've tried a few, to be honest with you. So
yeah,
I haven't found the right way yet.
No, I'm duties paid, or are you delivering with duties or without duties?
We've done it several ways, to be honest with you. We have different suppliers that arrange their own, and so many different ways. Yeah, but just even into Sweden, which has normally been so easy for us in the past, we found that it's been held up for, you know, sort of 7 days just at customs. So yeah.
It seems like, as far as we're concerned, that Ireland's finally started moving. We did a pallet shipment before on Friday, I think it was, and then there's some stuff going with DPD today from Germany to Ireland. But it's taken, I mean, you know, here we are 6 weeks into the new year, since January the 1st, and it's taken this long for anything to get moving that way.
I have just as an interesting, I mean, I thought I knew the answer, and maybe I'm wrong. We have some customers in the north that shipping to the south have actually asked us, are we going to pay their duty for our goods? And now I thought Ireland as a whole was able to ship between north and south duty free.
I thought so too.
But apparently, well, according to, I think this was Galgom actually, we're asking, you know, are we going to help them out with duties for delivery to the south? I thought that was, you know, sorted as Northern Ireland really was trading with Ireland as part of Europe. But obviously for us, if we deal and ship direct to to the Republic of Ireland, we're shipping to Europe. So we have to declare and pay duties. Whereas when we ship to the north, we have to declare, but we don't pay any duty.
Right, and you're talking about from the UK, John, yeah?
Yes, this is all from UK.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that really threw a curveball at me, and I was under the impression that North could deliver to South, you know, from a Northern Ireland business to sell to its customers in the south of Ireland. I thought that was duty free, but apparently not. So if anybody else has any experience, would
That's I must admit I've not come across that.
Keith knows the answer. Look,
I was just asking another question, John. It should be tariff free.
yeah.
Is it duties on the transportation and the paperwork cost, or is it specifically on duties?
Well, so this was obviously the goods have transferred ownership from us to Galgum, but they were saying that they're having to pay duties on the goods that they were selling. Now, whether it was Chinese goods that we bought in, for example, shipped to the north of Ireland, and then they're transferring those goods into Ireland, I couldn't really get that information out of him. I think they were slightly confused.
Okay.
And he managed to confuse me.
It's the rules of origin that are likely to cause the problem, which will incur the tariff if there's no additional working going on by them to add significantly to the value. And that's typically about 50% of the cost has got, or the value has got to be added in the UK. If you get any further details, we'll happily get it checked out with government, because there's a lot of misunderstanding around. So if we can get the facts on it, then if there's an issue there, we'll get to the bottom of it with Bays, because it's it's what we all need the answers to. But rules of origin, I suggest they come into play.
Yeah, it has been a very challenging time, and I feel, you know, my knowledge bank's getting better. That's why I thought, even though it was country of origin, I thought they would still be able to trade between the between Northern Ireland and Republic of Ireland.
Well, it's probably caught up in that part of the problem was they don't want the UK to become a dumping ground for cheap product that then goes into Europe and circumnavigate the rules. That may be the challenge I would have thought that's being faced here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. If I find out more,
I was sat on another one before from the DIT West Midlands, and it gives you a real good sort of idiot's guide. It was like exporting one from the DIT. I don't know whether anybody else was on that webinar, but I can send that round. It was really quite informative, really, especially what you're saying. I'll just give you an idea. Give me 1 second. So, Jocelyn, can I just share my screen again?
Yes, you're still co-host.
All right, okay. Just give me 1 second.
Probably a case of creating a new mailbox folder just for emails from the lovely Miss Sarah Jane Campbell and searching North, South Ireland in there. You might get 56 sources of information.
So this was like the document I got, which was quite good, to be honest with you. And it was about like rules of origin, which I think you just been mentioning there, Keith. And you know, if you just kind of importing and exporting it, then you still have to pay all the tariffs. Do you want me to ping this round to you all?
Please.
It was a really good, concise document, I have to say. So, yeah.
Yeah, thanks. That'd be great. Thanks.
Jocelyn, I'll send it to you, and
I'll get it out this afternoon with the
the
UK Export Finance Commission as well.
I'll send it.
I have to say, for we have stuff coming from Germany to ourselves, and we've, apart from DPD, who hadn't been running, until this weekend. Stuff coming into the UK has worked from sort of pretty early on. If you bring it over on a haulier as opposed to by courier. But I'm starting to see, which I didn't see at first, a bit of duty appearing, and I've no idea how to check whether we're being ripped off by somebody or not at the moment. I'm just having to pay it and look at it afterwards. But I'm guessing that it's probably going to come down to rules of origin again, Keith, I suspect. But as anybody, Robert, have you had any recent experience either exporting or?
Not so much in the EU, to be honest, so that was quite interesting. Going back to the start of that conversation on XDS, after the guy who presented, I forgot his name, but he was brilliant, one of the best presenters I've ever encountered. And with Falcon in particular, I've had a lot of communication with a guy called Daniel at XDS, and we're about to, maybe next month, pull the trigger on putting the products through for approval. On the Falcon side, Williams will take a bit longer. And just for your info, the estimate's about 2.5 grand, and that's for about 70 to 80% of our electric range. So it's, considering, Gary, what you've just said there, say 5 grand for a little exhibition in Germany. It's 2.5 grand for the biggest market in the Middle East. So
are you talking about for getting approved on Sabre?
Yeah.
Right.
It's been,
okay. And
thus far, it's been pretty painless, I'd have to say, with the guy Daniel Lewis at XDS. I'm maybe being a bit naive, and there might be hidden costs or a hurdle at the end of it, but thus far it's been okay.
And is that presumably that's mainly stuff that's made up at Falcon in Scotland, then, is it?
Yeah, we've got on. Sorry if I'm boring you. The Falcon UK side is obviously going to be certified here. Williams China is actually certified, Sabre certified out in China and Hong Kong. So the majority of that range is approved across there by CBC, a third-party organisation. In the Williams UK, we're working on that at the minute as well, shall we say. Whether we go XDS or a company we use in China, we're not decided. But on the UK side, XDS, the guy I'm dealing with, Daniel Lewis, has been great. And I said the costs aren't scary.
I think we'll give him a bash, actually.
I can share the guy details that I've been dealing with.
Yeah, if you don't mind, that'd be good, Rob.
The kind of key one for me when that guy presented, well, he obviously knew what he was talking about, but he gave examples of, I think, was it La Cimbali, and there were 2 food service companies that they'd been working with to get Sabre. So I immediately thought, oh, they really do know what they're talking about. Because I think we started with them probably over a year ago, even into 2019, and didn't make much progress with XDS for whatever reason. But following that presentation, whenever it was last year, and this guy, Daniel Lewis, it's been as smooth as anything, really impressive.
That's good. That's good.
I'll shut now.
I think I have to say that I think it must be easier if you're making it in the UK or you are a manufacturer. It's still a nightmare if you're an importer. Would you agree, John? Have you had a look at it?
Definitely. I think the challenge has been actually the educational part from our customers in Europe that have really struggled to get their heads around how they're going to get their goods from a delivery point of view. Is that what you meant, Steve? Sorry.
Well, I was thinking more of Sabre and the Middle East.
Yeah, and it's something Steve is probably best to talk about that because he's dealing with that market.
I think, like the other guys have just said, it seems like an easy process, but we delayed it when we had the meeting just before Christmas. They wanted obviously all the HS codes and everything, so we waited until we got the new HS codes for 2021 because there was no point starting the process. So I sent them an email with all that information last week, and I'm just waiting for them to come back. But normally they're relatively quick in responding, which is a positive. Not everybody is, are they? So yeah, I'll give you an update on that when we get a response. But the costings hopefully aren't going to be astronomical, like you say. So it might give us a steer in to that market. But I fully expect actually them to drop the Sabre system within the next couple of years, because obviously as they relinquish the tourist visas and everything else and try and push people in to Saudi, then they're going to have to make it easier for their local businesses to get supply.
However, they only introduced Sabre a year ago in January, didn't they?
Yeah, but there was something in place before that was similar, I believe.
Right. Yeah. Talking of HS codes, has this been an issue for people? Because I'm discovering that so for example, on our system we have HS codes which are 8 digits, but we've had a customer in the UK who's got an operation in Ireland who's saying they need 10 digits. My understanding from talking to my German colleagues is that each country might have a different digits beyond the 8. In fact, the basic digits are the first 4, and then but it's the digits beyond the 8 which are relate to that particular country. So for instance, if you're importing into Germany, it's 11 digits. If you're importing into Ireland, I'm told it's 10. Has anybody struggled with trying to work out? So we got 7,000 different part numbers or whatever. We know what our 8-digit codes are for those, but I'm just finding it a bit tricky to know almost where to start to work out what the I know somebody said you just add 2 zeros, but that's not always the case, actually.
No, definitely not. Definitely not, because it highlights the last 2 digits tend to be the flag to customs for a product. Certainly with plastics is a classic example where melamine coming in. Now, when we were part of Europe, wasn't the European tariff the same for all European countries? Because there was the flag on melamine where melamine coming out of China, Hong Kong had a 19 at the end, which was the last 2 digits, denoting to customs throughout Europe that had to be a checked product for conformity. So that was my understanding. Certainly, when we import on 10 numbers. When we export on 8 numbers. But if we're doing a DDP, we are still using 10 digits for that DDP declaration.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Going out of the UK is 8-digit. Coming into the UK is 10.
Okay. So somehow I need to work out what those other digits are for us.
Well, it is 2 zeros on the end for the UK import. It's the same 8-digit number, just with an extra 2 for bringing it in to the UK.
Yeah, but is it always 00, Keith?
Yeah, I believe it is. Yeah. Well, that was my understanding of it from the presentations that I've been on.
John, do you have a comment?
Well, it's not always 2 zeros.
Okay, right.
Depending on the type of material.
Right.
So certainly melamine's one. I can go through mine, and we have quite a few that don't just necessarily end in 00. Some end in 90, some in 19. Okay. So I mean, I spent.
Is there a
the tariff checker on the gov website? I spent the whole of December on that. And it gives you, you really have to fine tune, and they're a little bit sluggish now when you do ring customs to check it. But there used to be you could actually call a number and speak to somebody and work through what your tariff code should be to get it.
I put the tariff checker in the chat if anybody wants it. There's also an event on the 18th on Thursday, which is a Make UK event about trading with Northern Ireland. If anybody wants to jump on that, if you register as an affiliate, you'll get free access to it. And that's in the chat as well, if anybody wants to join that.
Okay, thanks, Keith. Anybody else want to raise anything?
Good, thanks.
Positive, negative? So what do people reckon the outlook is for exports? A, with EU countries, and B, with non-EU countries?
Well, from our point of view, I suppose all you can really take is a pretty surface level view, given there are so many variables that change week to week. But the only meaningful measure would seem to be vaccination progress, and on a pure export basis, not so good, given that all focuses on UK. I suppose any indication of Milan host going ahead is probably one sort of major signpost for our industry. It's really an opportunity to build on the activity of UK customers we're finding that have operations, end users, part of a group have end users abroad. Good time to progress the strategy and relationship building, but pretty limited generally in the Northern Hemisphere in terms of being able to progress things as quickly as you'd like.
Mm-hmm. Is the Middle East dropping off in terms of general demand, do you think, at the moment, or is it just all confusing because of the state of the pandemic in various regions, do you think?
Sorry, for me.
For anyone. Yeah. I mean, Saudi, for example, was when we about a year. When was it? About September, I think. We had chap on from Unox, and he was saying that the Middle East and particularly Saudi didn't miss a beat last year.
Yeah.
But I noticed that Saudi Horeca had been delayed. And I don't know what the situation with the pandemic is in Saudi, but has anybody got any experience either there or in other areas of the world where?
I spoke to Matt the other day, actually.
Oh, yeah.
So he's the guy that presented from Unox as well, because he's a good friend. He used to work for me. And it's done the same for him. He's been asked to quote lots of times, quite a few big contracts, but everything seems to have just kind of not dried up, just gone very quiet, should we say, from that side of it. Although they say hospitality's open, it's very limited. You know, there are some very tight restrictions on there as well. So yeah, I think that it's very similar to the rest of Europe now, to be honest with you. It's still happening and projects are still going ahead, but it's all very much delayed. So is Robert still on there? Because I know Robert was chatting to.
Yeah, I'll checking I'm not on mute. Yeah, ditto. I mean, our financial year is slightly different, being September to August, so we measured it a bit differently. But up till Christmas, New Year, we were still going well, to be honest. But noticeable since January, with Christmas, New Year, we've had Chinese New Year with our factory, which makes a bit of a difference, I suppose. But really noticeable. And just a little anecdote, fun. It's a bit of an aside, but speaking to our Israeli partner, and there you probably know, I think they're the most advanced in the world in terms of vaccine rollout. So chatting to him, and I assumed that they would be either opening up their market and all the facilities slowly but surely. But he said all F&B restaurants, hotels, even schools, so they're still all closed there. So that gave me a bit of a jolt, to be honest, because I thought if they're ahead of us and they're still not properly open, and we're next in line, a few months behind, and what about Europe and the rest of the Middle East if they're behind even us? So it was rather sobering, that one. So just to cheer you up.
Thank you, Robert. Okay. Anybody got anything else that they want to raise? If not, we'll pass it on to AOB.
Yeah, I was just going to add, if I may, Steve. I've just done a check on the tariff checker, and it appears for most finished product, it is simply a 00 on the end. Certainly, on the case for the melamine, as John has mentioned, where there are chemical issues relating to the composition of product, it seems that the extension is used to fine tune that. So I've just looked up a couple of items, dishwashers, for example, and it's fairly lumpy and there's lots of zeros on the end of it, but it seems to be the chemical composition that's causing the requirement there. So the spell check is quite intuitive. If you've got any questions on it, I suggest just going in, having a look, putting in the product and seeing what you come up with. So thanks for the clarification on that, John. I wasn't aware of that until you mentioned it.
Tariff checker, you mean, Keith? Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Tariff checker. Yeah. Thanks.
Great. Okay. Thanks for that, Keith.
I suppose the only other event that I'd ask if people are having much involvement with is Dubai Expo. I connected with a number of the sort of senior high-level executives there. I know they still did a lot of their speccing quite a while ago, but it's the event that probably the Middle East as a whole is most resistant to delaying, reducing any impact investment on at all, given they already obviously shunted it back by a year. But then I'm finding that that's a sort of leverage point to get things going, get some business activity in the Middle East.
Yeah, I've not heard anything really more about Dubai Expo for ages. So, because the official sort of start date is actually October, isn't it?
Yeah, 1st of October until for exactly 6 months.
As I know, it's still going ahead. I've had a few projects dropping in over the last couple of weeks where they should have come in last year but didn't. So things are still materialising out there. It's just going to take a little bit longer, I think. I think it'll be right at the end. That rush 3 weeks before they need it.
Yeah. All good fun. Okay. Jocelyn. Any other business?
From me, no.
No. Keith, anything from you?
No, all good. Thanks, Steve.
Okay. John?
No.
Leander?
No, I think.
Gary?
No, I'll just update you when I can get any more info.
Great, thanks. Steve?
From my side, no, it's just been good to sit on it, have a bit of an understanding of how the group works. So thank you very much. Sorry, I've not been a contributor towards it, but no, it's been good to listen in. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thanks. The other Steve Kirby?
No, all good, thank you.
Robert?
No, done. Thanks. Good session. Enjoyed that.
Right. Okay. Glenn, anything from you?
Well, there's always one.
Yeah, he's still muted.
He's still talking away though. Glenn,
yeah. You're still muted. Can't hear you, Glenn.
Must be clocking up a year of practice by now.
We'll take that as all clear with you.
There you go.
I'm back. Here I am. I was just apologising for my rude lurking. I was having to do other things as well as have it on the background. So thanks very much, guys. It has been interesting and useful. I know my colleagues back at the office have been having all of those difficulties and issues with how many digits, where should they be, and where they need to be thrust. So yes, it's been very problematic. But no, thank you for that. Thanks, Steve. And apologies for my ham-fisted technology.
No worries. Okay, right. So Jocelyn, we haven't got a date yet. Should we wait until till you can work out a suitable date? That's probably the best thing, isn't it?
Perhaps is that okay? Just after Easter? How does that look? Unless we
fine for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not planning any holidays, so don't worry.
Well,
okay.
After Easter then.
Great. Okay. Well, thanks everyone.
Thank
And thanks for your input as well. It's been good.
No problem.
Thanks,
Chairman.
Take
Good to
care,
see you all.
everybody.
Cheers all.
Cheers.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.